At Embedded 2019 in Nuremberg, we were mighty pleased to be invited over to the booth of Arrow. It's rather a pavilion than a booth, I have to say, with lots of people. It's very crowded and very noisy. Apologies for that, but that's a good sign. There's much interest in the Arrow things on show here. I'm going to talk with Morten Block about a very curious, still find a curious combination. A couple of years ago, everybody was into artificial intelligence. Then we had IoT, or the other way around. Now we seem to have reached a point where AI and IoT come together. It's very interesting. And we're going to see what Arrow has to offer on that. First of all, Morten, thanks for doing the interview in this incredibly crowded area. It's a good sign, as I've said. I know, and my audience, I think, to know Arrow very well as a component supplier, in retail, mass retail, for various large selection of brands, very famous brands. And that used to be very tangible components, soldering, assembly, debugging, testing, and sort of thing, assembly. Now we seem to move more to the software area with introduction of artificial intelligence. And IoT. How does Arrow experience that difference between hardware sales and shall we say software sales and software advice?
Yeah. So basically we are following the trends of the markets and the solutions and what's required to build you can say solutions of 2019. Mm-hmm. You are absolutely right. 10 years ago the focus was more components. If you if some of our customers that we were visiting 10 years ago, maybe 8 out of 10 in a R&D department were hardware guys and 2 were software guys. Yeah. Today it's the other way around. So in many cases with our customers today, the hardware is becoming more and more the commodity. They just want a platform to run their software on. Yep. A lot of the IP of our customers today is in the software rather than the hardware. So again, the importance of being able to provide both, hardware and software is key today for our customers.
Morten, do you see interaction in your user area between the guys doing hardware and the software? How's that? How does Arrow experience that?
Yeah. Definitely, I think it depends on the application. In some applications where it's a very hardware near solution, where maybe it's about sensors and having a unique algorithm where you are using sensor data to provide, and that's where kind of your IP in. Then there's a very close connection between the software and the hardware guys. And in many cases, maybe the guy doing the hardware is also doing the software. But in applications where some of the ones that we're going to talk a little bit about here in a minute, yeah. Where it's primarily about the software rather than the hardware. And that's not to neglect the hardware at all, because you definitely need the hardware. Without the hardware, we would have, we wouldn't have a lot of the great companies that we all know today. But the hardware now is becoming so powerful. So you said before in your introduction that maybe if people were looking at AI way back, and everyone had been
initially they thought it's just a bunch of software, really, presenting a very heavy load onto PCs and microcontrollers. Yeah. But now it seems to have adapted that the hardware is geared to doing AI.
And that's why we believe and see that AI is taking off now, because now the hardware is so powerful. So what you had to do maybe just 5-10 minutes or 10 years ago, you would have to wait too long on things like that. And with being able to react on real time or events, then you really need powerful hardware. I heard a story the other day that the power or the computing power that took man to the moon is now in an additional or average.
It's just an LED driver.
X 1000. You have 1,000 more times more power in an iPhone that you had in the computer that took man to the moon. Yeah. So
talking about combinations, successful combinations, Morten, again, between the hardware guys and the software eaters and consumers. What can you mention a few big highlights in your program of software and hardware companions, so to speak, which you support at Arrow?
Yeah. So first of all, our focus is and keep on being delivering complete solutions. And today, a solution consists of many aspects. One is the hardware and the software. Another thing is the ecosystem in terms of partners. So on our booth, this week here, we have more than 250 different solutions, which is something we have built in the combination of Arrow people and our partners. So we have more than 50 partners represented here on our booth that we have developed this together. No one, or the complexity of the applications today is so high that no one can actually do it themselves. So therefore we build different constellations depending on what solution that we have to provide.
Can you mention an example constellation which is famous, or?
Yeah, if we look at...
If I'm looking at NVIDIA, which is very well known.
One of the things here that
what's doing here?
Is NVIDIA hardware platform, and maybe it looks a bit big here, but actually what it takes is what's beneath this fan here is a very, very powerful platform optimized to run AI software on.
Yes, because we used to know NVIDIA from their video cards only,
yes,
and then now they seem to have extended into AI very much by especially at the camera aspects, and video.
Camera is just a very widely known and obvious application to work with when we're talking about AI, because if you can actually convert a camera into a sensor for a lot of different things. And if you take this as an example, where in this case it's recognized in some cars and some people walking and so on, then if you take the example of how would you build a parking management system maybe 5 years ago versus 2019, then 5 years ago we would probably have some kind of sensors.
Yes, some loop in the ground, some auto-responding NFC thing in your car, and now it's camera-oriented.
Yeah, and you could say maybe each sensor would be cheap enough, and in terms of overall cost of the system, looking at each of the sensors and the volume and the cost of that. But if you then start to look at also the time of, or the complexity of installation and things like that in a big garage system, or we all have been at airports or indoor parking spaces where you see that, then the total cost will go down and the features will increase dramatically. So if we look at this as an example, then instead of mounting all these independent and discrete kind of sensors, you install one video camera or maybe a couple overlooking a parking area, and then with machine learning and things like that, then you can start do a very, very intelligent and simple parking management.
What is happening on these screens in real time, Morten?
Yeah, so this is not...
Is this a car searching for a parking space?
No. This is not linked to... No, this is
It's my car. Oh, look there. Exactly. I'm always searching for parking places.
No, I think we've all been in that situation, but this specific example is not linked to parking. It was just an example. So if you then want to take this to the next level, and maybe you want to do that at a private area for a company or things like that, then you start to be able to train your software to look at the difference between a taxi, between a delivery from UPS, or maybe a guest that are coming back and back frequently, so you can welcome them in the reception. You can start to build things in like that, which you would never be able to do with kind of the sensor-based.
Traditional sensor, which look suddenly they look very old-fashioned now, don't they? Loops in the ground, NFC, tags, IDs, and long numbers, etc. This is much more powerful.
And one of the very powerful things about AI, which I think is so exciting, is that apart from this, so imagine if you kind of develop a parking solution based on an AI platform like this, and then you start to deploy that across several countries, several locations, and maybe just in a small range have 1,000 systems installed across Europe. As an example, then each of these individual systems, they get smarter and smarter individually. They then share that in the cloud, which is then enhancing the overall algorithm in terms of recognizing cars, that they can then send out again over a secure over-the-air update. and then all the products out there are getting better and better. We know it a little bit from getting software updates from our phones, that they become smarter and smarter. This is actually sharing from the real world what it's learning, improving their algorithms, and sharing with the rest of the swarm, as we call it, of IoT nodes. So this is what we believe this is a very powerful kind of thing to be able to do.
If I were a rank beginner, which basically I am with AI, and Arrow is supporting all these different options to choose from, software, hardware, different hardware suppliers and manufacturers, what would be your recommendation to me, Morten, to get on an extremely steep learning curve with AI for embedded programming and IoT programming? Yeah. What would be your personal recommendation for me? How should I start?
Yeah, so there's different options. First of all, reach out to your local Arrow contact, and we'll be happy to come out and kind of review.
Who is ready to come out? Do you have experts available?
Yes, we do. So we have invested a lot in both. We have had with where we're coming from, we've had a lot of hardware engineers over the time. So or historically, we still have that. Again, we cannot do anything without hardware. So we have specialists on both the hardware, and then we have been investing heavily in also specific software-focused resources.
Because programming software for AI is a total different kettle of fish than program traditional sequences, PLCs and industrial processes. You are handling huge amounts of data. That's one thing, and you have to use fairly high-level algorithms to be able to prevent delving too deep, which could get very complicated. Yeah. So you have experts in place at Arrow?
Yes, we do. Both from within Arrow, within our partner network, at our suppliers like NVIDIA. We have, combined, we have a lot of resources that can help guide our customers to get into this field. But also the interesting thing, I think, is that with AI, on one side, you're right, the learning curve is steep. But if you crack that, and get into the holy grail of AI, then you get a lot of help by the machine learning part of it to help develop your algorithm, which is in the past people had to develop models and develop the software and describe exactly how to react on software. And now you have software which is helping improve.
It's called cognitive learning. Yeah, exactly. It will actually help you and put you on the steep curve. Exactly, yeah. Okay, what would be your dream application for you personally, for an AI combination of hardware and software?
So I think
something you would very much like. It doesn't have to exist.
No, but I think we are every year we are hosting a big training event for all our technical people here in Europe. This year is going to be in Berlin. And we're going to have everyone together. We're going to have like 10 parallel sessions where all our experts go through a very intense week getting trained in all the latest and greatest technologies. One of the things we've always been focused on is making sure that the quality of the sessions are at the right level. Yeah. So there are companies out there now that are utilizing and using AI with a camera, looking at the audience in training sessions, looking at their faces, looking at their expressions, looking at if they're looking up or down, and then overall rate each of the sessions in terms of how was the quality of the session and the intensive.
I think you've just invented school again.
Yeah, maybe, but and you can say
the boring teacher doing very poorly and the good teacher doing very well.
You need to find the balance between how you want to use that data in a constructive way, of course. But I think that's just a very interesting application. And then back to your point about how you could learn, we're also rolling out a lot of seminars where you can actually join and get hands-on trainings. We've done quite a few around Europe already, and we're going to definitely going to continue that, because that's required to help our customers and developers to get into the AI space.
Final question, Morten. When will we be able to read about all this in Electro Industry magazine, please?
As soon as you want, we have a lot to share. We have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to tell. I think the whole booth here is, I don't know where to start. As I said in the beginning, we have more than 250 solutions that we can start talking about. And I think if you walk around and see some of the solutions, it's not only development boards. It's actually finished boxed products that you can actually use as a reference design and work on and develop your own kind of software into the application and the end product.
The start of a very steep learning curve. Morten, thank you very much for your explanation. Unique combination of AI and IoT, I believe, very powerful and very promising for the future with so many products and big names involved.
Yeah.
Jan Buiting for Electro Industry Television from Embedded 2019. Thank you, Morten.
Thank you.